With the year end in sight, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about a few of my favorite ITX cases that I've built in this year so far. Now, I obviously have not used every available ITX case on the market. However, I have used quite a few this year. And I do have more cases that are new or just new to me that I will be building on the channel, including things like the new Endcase M1 Evo and others. So I do expect this to be a topic that I will revisit every 6 or so months as more cases are released. Now, this list is also not in any particular order, nor are they necessarily the best of any specific category. Rather, they are just the cases that stood out to me the most. The only other criteria to make this list is that they must be available to buy at the time of this video's posting. Later on, we'll talk about this video's sponsor, Squarespace, but for now, let's start with a case that I've honestly not been able to stop thinking about since my build back in April of this year, and that's the NR200P Max. Now, admittedly, this is more than just a case, as it does include an 850 watt 80 plus gold SFX power supply and a 280mm CPU cooler pre-installed. But if you didn't want those extras, the NR200P case can be purchased on its own, which has the same 18-liter design and size. Still, I highly recommend the Max because of how incredibly easy it is to get up and going. Now, I think this Max version is the perfect fit if you're someone who is looking into downsizing to an ITX machine, but you don't want to go through all of the planning required for a small build. Because even if you're not an experienced builder, you can have this thing fully armed in under an hour. Once the CPU cooler bracket is installed on the motherboard, you can just drop it in, attach the block, make your power and riser cable connections, your case connections, drop in your GPU, and that's basically it, you're done. So you don't have to worry about CPU cooler clearance, cable management, or much of anything else. And I absolutely love this dark gray color. Especially paired with the included tempered glass side panel, it just looks super clean in my opinion. It does also include a vented side panel as well, but I was quite happy with the cooling performance even with the tempered glass side panel attached when using my large 4080 GPU, which this case can support up to a triple slot GPU at a max of 336mm in length. So the large majority of today's graphics cards are still compatible. I will give a quick mention to the NZXT H1 as well, which does also include a 750 watt power supply and a CPU cooler while taking up a very small footprint on your desk. That case is just as easy to build in and can often be found for around half the price of the NR200P. Now, next up is the case everyone was talking about and has since become a pretty popular option, and that's the Fractal Terra. I think this case originally got a lot of attention from its interesting design, especially with the wood feature on the front panel that is unique to every individual case and made of solid walnut. I do really like the overall look of this case, although I can't help but to wonder what a version of this case would look like with a front panel design more similar to the Fractal North instead. The build experience is also great in my opinion. The case comes fully assembled and has these easy access side panels that flip up and can be easily removed. Fractal also included an adjustable center, so when you shift that center section, you can favor CPU cooler height or GPU clearance based on the direction you move it, which this allows for more overall component versatility. Now, Fractal is not the first company to have this feature. The Form T1 has been doing this for years. However, the Terra does have its own spin on it, and it makes it a bit more beginner friendly with numbered markings and easier access to make adjustments even after all of your components are installed. The Terra is 10 liters in volume, and depending on how you have the case configured, it supports a CPU cooler from 48mm to 77mm and a GPU width from 33mm to 62mm up to 322mm in length. Now, unfortunately, there is no top or bottom radiator compatibility, but you could still add a single 120 side rad with a shorter GPU. Although I imagine the vast majority of people will opt just for air cooling. And so this case is perfect for a simple, stylish, air-cooled gaming PC build. Okay, next up is that aforementioned Formed T1. This one also has a capacity of 10 liters and has been beloved by the ITX community for quite some time now. Although I only recently had the chance to build in it myself, but it's quickly become one of my favorites as well. And I know there will be people who will comment that these are not available, but as of right now, they have been frequently restocked at the sites that I have listed in the description. And at the time of this posting, there are more in stock. But it's not hard to see why these go out of stock so frequently. It really is one of the best design cases I've ever used. It's almost entirely made of high quality CNC aluminum, has a center adjustment similar to what we were just talking about in the Terra, but I actually like the way the T1 does it better. I do think that the Terra's adjustable spine is more beginner friendly, but I do like the locked in nature of the T1. Now, it does require some pre-planning, but I think the end result feels more solid and secure. For such a small 10-liter case, the T1 is seriously uncompromising. You can fit a standard 240mm liquid cooler along with a decently sized 3-slot graphics card up to 325mm in length. or even pick up a fan bracket and go for a dual radiator setup if you wanted. My recent build is with the new Cooler Master Atmos 240 and a 7800 XT, but you could snugly fit up to a Founders Edition 4090 if you wanted. I really like the modern minimalistic look. It's incredibly sleek in my opinion. There are a handful of different colors to choose from. Mine is the silver finish, and I think it just looks super clean. It almost looks like it belongs in an Apple lineup. It does not come assembled, so it arrives flat packed. And so with that comes a more involved setup process compared to most of the other cases on this list. My recent build video goes through it all step by step if you're interested in building it yourself. Okay, so now I want to take a minute to talk about this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace makes building a website incredibly easy. You basically just choose a template from one of the hundreds available and customize it to fit your needs. You can add a blog, video library, portfolio gallery, or even a custom online store to sell any of your physical or digital products, which is all controlled right on the Squarespace website with an analytics page so that you can track all of your website traffic and online orders. You can also set up an online calendar for customers to easily book an appointment with you, or use the marketing section to create email campaigns, such as newsletters to send out to all of your subscribers. Even if you just need an online portfolio, Squarespace is the best platform to do it. Whenever you're ready to get started, you can sign up for a completely free trial using the link squarespace.com/Devyn Johnston. And if you use the code Devyn Johnston at checkout, you can save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Okay, and next up has to be the VelCase Velco 3. It is just incredible how much you can fit into this tiny 3.9 liter case. In my recent build with it, I was able to fit up to an RTX 4060 with an Intel i5 13400, which makes this the smallest enclosure available that can fit a 4060. It's just amazing how powerful of a gaming PC you can fit in such a small build that also fits into your backpack. Now, due to its size, the options for CPU cooling are quite limited, supporting only up to a 37mm CPU cooler. However, if you do pair this with a lower TDP CPU that can be adequately cooled by an ultra low profile CPU cooler, then you can achieve some pretty impressive results. Because of its compact size, a flex ATX power supply is required. Many of these smaller power supplies can produce a significant amount of noise. However, I've used the 600 watt power supply that you can buy directly from the VelCase website and have had no issues with the noise levels. The build process is pretty unique. It comes fully assembled, but it does require you to basically take the entire case apart. That way you can remove the motherboard tray, where you then mount your motherboard and GPU before fitting everything back together. Now, if you're interested in seeing that build in more detail, I'll also leave a link to that video in the description. But if you are wanting a more powerful GPU, but you still want a similarly small sized PC, then you could also check out the Velco 5 or 7. I recently posted a video building a 4070 system in the Velco 5, and I think the results were quite impressive. Now, another super compact case worth checking out is also the HT5 from Laser 3D. Now, the case is only slightly larger than the Velco 5 at 5.3 liters. However, unlike the Velco cases, you have the option to position it horizontally or vertically, which I do believe it makes it a good choice for a home theater or a media console PC. There's also a ton of room for CPU cooling at up to 72mm, and it can fit a dual slot low profile graphics card. In my build, I went with the best available LP card right now, and that's the Gigabyte 4060 OC low profile. I paired that with the Ryzen 7600 and a 250 watt power supply from HD Plex, which was just enough to power the build. I was recording around 220 watts of power draw from the wall under a full gaming load. Altogether, it made for a super satisfying fit. This case comes flat packed as well, and it's made using a laser cut acrylic, which feels very light but sturdy with a slight texture to it. But the build process for that one is very simple. They keep all of the parts very nicely organized to make things even easier. Okay, and so the final case here is the iQnix ZX1. So I did really enjoy building in this one. It has a fully machined unibody aluminum construction, so the whole case just feels absolutely solid. Has magnetically attached side panels and a touch capacitive button, which all give it a really clean and premium feel. Now, as far as the build experience goes, the bracket for the AIO in the water-cooled version is removable, so that makes it pretty easy to put everything together. There's adequate space for an SFX or SFXL power supply, and plenty of room for cable management. The AIO tools also fit in perfectly as well. However, you will want to plan ahead on the CPU block height. There's about 55mm of space, and many CPU blocks these days exceed that, and not all of them will actually list this spec. I tried a few different ones in my build and landed on the Corsair H100i RGB Elite liquid cooler that I thought looked really clean in my all-white build. There's also two different versions of this case. One of them is air-cooled and the other is water-cooled. And each of these are gonna have different dimensions and component compatibility. Now, the water-cooled version I have here is 10.6 liters, and it can fit a dual slot GPU up to 305mm in length and 60mm in height, which I completely maxed out when I stuffed a Gigabyte Aero 4070 in there. Now, it is important to note that the air-cooled version of this case is more height limited, so that can support a GPU up to 45mm in height, but it can fit a larger CPU cooler at up to 70mm. Now, since my build in September, ITX has also added more colors to their lineup, and they now offer PCI Express 4.0 riser cables, which is really good to see. So despite graphics cards and many of our PC components still getting larger and larger, the ITX market is still thriving with new cases coming out all the time, with new designs and new ideas. And so there are still plenty of builds with new cases coming to the channel. Because of that, this is definitely a topic that I want to revisit periodically. I have plenty of other cases and builds on the channel that I really enjoyed working with. And generally speaking, when I'm planning out an ITX build, I'm usually looking for something that I like and that I hope that you all will like as well. So I'm always starting with a positive mindset and trying to judge a case based on its intended purpose. But with that said, that doesn't mean that I won't point out its shortcomings when I do find them. So anyways, what cases do you think should have made it onto the video, or which ones do you think I should check out? Let me know in the comments below. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.